Hi there, and welcome back to this tutorial series for using the Early Notation Typesetter. In this episode, I'll be going over the basics of entry and the difference between entry and edit modes. Before we get started entering any notes, let's go ahead and select the font that we would like to use. This can be done under the File tab. Here we have a range of font choices, and this will only grow as the project continues. Note that if you are not logged in or you are not currently a backer of the project on Patreon, you will be limited to the default Tinny font. If you would like to access the additional fonts, you can go over to the Account tab, log in, and connect a Patreon account. And the fonts will automatically be available to you. Let's stick with Tinny for now, and we'll go over to the Symbols tab. Now, ENT functions on two basic modes of entry. We have the keyboard and we have the mouse. And it's designed to allow you to use either or combine them depending on whatever works for you. And you can do that freely. You don't have to switch a toggle or anything. Let me show a practical example of this. I'll zoom in here first so you can see better what's going on. We have a little zoom button down here. So to get started, we typically would want to enter a clef. So you can see over here we have our clefs in the symbols panel. We have a C clef, a G clef, another G clef, and an F clef. And the exact appearance of these will be different for every font. So I can go ahead here and, for example, with my mouse, select the G clef. You'll notice that a preview, grayed out, appears in the main entry area. I can interact with this preview with my mouse, moving it up and down until it's in the position I'd like. I can then click with my mouse, and left click that is, and that symbol has now been entered on the page. You can see this entered symbol is now black. If I make a mistake, I can hit backspace and undo it and try again. Let's look at this from a keyboard perspective now. You'll notice over here in this panel, all of these symbols have, or many of these symbols rather, have a hotkey letter. For example, for the C clef, it's C. For the G clef, it's a G, and for the F clef, it's an F. I can go ahead and hit G on my keyboard and bring up the G clef. Now, instead of using my mouse to move it up and down, I can use the up and down arrow keys to move the note up and down. This may be more convenient if you're working on a laptop and only have a trackpad, especially a smaller trackpad, and using a mouse is not possible. So with this symbol where I want it, I can hit the right arrow key, which advances us over to the right here. And you can see the same result. I've entered the G clef. Of course, I can hit backspace to remove it. Now let's go ahead and enter a few symbols here. I'll enter my G clef with the mouse. I click and there it is. Now I need to enter a time signature, for example. So I can go over here, you can see we have a couple time signatures available with this particular font. And the one I'm after is this guy. And you can see we have hotkeys here, N, M, and comma for the time being. If I hit comma, there it is. Or I can click on it and there it is. You'll notice I can't move this up and down. This is because in this particular font, and this is a font particular specific thing, the time signature is always placed in the middle position. So I can click to enter it, and there it is. We have 2 units entered. Now we refer to these as units. These are individual, essentially chunks of type digitally. Units can be selected and such and moved around. There's a key thing to understand here. And ENT uses 2 different modes when you're working in this edit panel. What we were just doing, where we have these previews here, is called entry mode. In entry mode, we're entering things, and the cursor only moves when we enter something new. I can't select things, I can't go back, etc. If I want to go back and make a change, maybe I forgot to insert a note or something, I need to exit out of this entry mode and go into what we call edit mode. The process of doing this is pretty simple. So you're clicking along, you realize you made a mistake, so what you want to do instead of left clicking is right click. You'll notice the preview is gone, the note is no longer selected, and I can now click and move my cursor. If I go to enter a new note now, you'll see I go back into entry mode where the cursor is, and I can now go and enter the missing notes. I can then right click again, or on the keyboard hit escape, and I'm back in edit mode. Edit mode also allows you to do things like copy passages of music and paste them, as well as deleting large portions if you need to, etc. Let's go ahead and finish out this line with just a few more notes. Now you'll notice over here we have our notes panel. I'm sorry I didn't explain this earlier. These can be clicked and selected just like our symbols, if you wish to do so, going over like an artist getting different paint on the brush. Or you can use these hotkeys. Now you see these are numbered 1 through 8. These correspond to the number keys above the alphabetic part of your keyboard. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. These are our notes, and we can enter them in the exact same way as we did for the clef. We can use the mouse to move up and down and place them, or we can use the arrow keys. And then we can hit the right arrow key to advance and enter it. And this is very good for scalar figures. Or we can use our mouse and select the placement like so. Now you'll notice down here there are 2 buttons, one labeled space and one labeled tab. If you press the space bar or click this button, you will notice that it switches into rests. These are the corresponding rest values for the given notes. If you press tab, on the other hand, it will switch into colored or black notation, which you can use when you need that. So for example, if I want to enter a minim rest, I can hit space to switch to rests, select the minim rest here, and then I can enter it on whatever line I would like. You notice ENT intelligently does not let me place something like a minim rest on a line or on a space, depending on how you look at it. Rests and such can only be placed in positions where they should naturally appear. Just insert a few rests here, and then maybe a few more notes. Now let's say we're done with our line, and we want to advance to the next line. This can be done just like a word processor by hitting enter. Note if you are using mainly the cursor, you can also just hit this enter icon at the end of the row, and it will accomplish the same thing. If you accidentally hit enter, or you realize you weren't done with the line, or you want to reflow and consolidate lines, you can simply hit backspace to undo that enter. So let's hit enter here, and you'll notice there's currently a ghosted out Kustos and a ghosted out Clef, as well as our ghosted out note that we're currently focused on trying to enter right now. As I move this note, you'll notice the Kustos moves and transforms to match. When I click, it enters the Kustos, and it no longer moves. So we have officially started a new line here, and it has automatically entered the Kustos where we need it to be. I can go back and change that starting note, and the Kustos will update so the next line always matches. If you're working in a situation where you don't want the automatic custos, you can instead manually select the custos item and place a custos manually this way. You'll notice this custos is black instead of gray, so that designates that it's manual instead of automatic. Similarly, to designate a clef change, you can instead insert a clef at the start of the line. If I enter a few notes now and hit enter, and then go to enter more notes, it'll want to stick to that clef. So let's continue things as they were. I can go ahead and enter some more notes. And one other thing you'll notice is when I hit enter before, it'll automatically space out our line there, so that everything is more or less equidistant. It puts in these little tiny gray spacers. Now note that when you actually go to export the file, it won't have those little spacers there. You can verify this by going to print preview under file, or pressing the W hotkey at any time, and this will show you what the spacers will look like. In a future video, I'll be showing you how to adjust this spacing and adjust the staff line style and all that to better match the particular style you're looking for. Now let's say that we're coming to the end of a piece. Here's our final note, and we want to end the piece off. Go down here and select one of these piece ending markers, enter it, and if I hit enter and I go to enter a new note, you'll notice there's no custos there. It knows not to stick a custos in there for you. And you can of course change the clef. Now often in early music you have a situation in typesetting where they have a bunch of spacers after the end of the piece. So we can access manual spacers down here. And in a additional video, I'll be showing you some techniques for exactly how to use those in musical context as well. And when I hit enter now, this is spaced out less aggressively. It looks a bit cleaner. In fact, we could do even more. There we go. And that's sort of the basic gist of entry in ENT. Now, I hope you'll join me for the next video. I'll keep going over entry. In the next video, we'll look at typesetting an actual piece of music, so it won't just be random notes. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.